What kind of person lies about being a chef just to scam a bowl of soup? Karen waddled into the rusty ladle, her purse swinging like a weapon, her voice already loud enough to drown out the clatter of plates. The small diner, nestled in a quiet corner of Portland, was packed that evening, the air thick with the aroma of simmering beef broth and fresh-baked bread. Karen's eyes, sharp and greedy, locked onto the kitchen pass-through where steaming bowls were whisked to waiting tables. She didn't wait for a hostess. She didn't need to. She shoved past a young couple, her bulk forcing them to sidestep, and planted herself at the counter, demanding attention. "I'm a chef," she declared, her voice dripping with self-proclaimed authority. "I know good broth, and I expect the best." The staff exchanged glances. They'd seen her type before. Maya, the head chef, wiped her hands on her apron and leaned forward, her dark braids swinging as she sized Karen up. Maya had spent years perfecting her craft. Her beef bone broth a local legend, simmered for 18 hours with marrow bones and secret spices. Karen's claim rang hollow, but Maya's smile stayed polite. "What's your specialty, then?" she asked, her tone light but her eyes sharp. Karen puffed out her chest, her floral blouse straining at the seams. "Oh, everything. Soups, stews, you name it. I've cooked for Michelin-star restaurants." The lie hung in the air like grease smoke. The waiter, a lanky kid named Ethan, stifled a laugh, earning a glare from Karen that could curdle milk. She demanded a bowl of Maya's famous broth. "To test it," she said, "because I know quality." Maya nodded, her face unreadable, and turned to the kitchen. Karen's eyes followed every move, gleaming with something predatory. She wasn't here for the food. She was here for the scam. The rusty ladle had been hit before customers claiming to be experts, who'd complain, demand free meals, or worse, swap out perfectly good dishes with cheap substitutes to cry foul. Karen's plan was simple. She'd brought a thermos of Watery, store-bought broth in her purse, ready to pour into Maya's bowl and claim the restaurant was serving swill. She'd done it before at other places, walking away with gift cards or cash refunds, her smugness growing with every victory. As Maya ladled out a steaming bowl, Karen leaned closer, her fingers twitching toward her purse. Ethan, hovering nearby, caught the movement. His eyes narrowed. He'd been burned by a scammer last month, a guy who'd swapped out a steak for a half-eaten burger and screamed about standards. Ethan whispered to Maya, who didn't flinch. "Let her try," Maya murmured, her voice low. "We'll see how far she gets." Karen, oblivious, launched into a loud critique of the broth before even tasting it. Too oily, too bland, not up to her professional standards. The other diners turned, some annoyed, others curious. Karen reveled in the attention, her voice rising like a siren. Maya set the bowl in front of her, the rich amber broth glistening under the lights. Karen smirked, already reaching for her thermos under the counter. She thought she was slick, but Ethan was watching, his phone discreetly angled to record. The twist came fast. Karen didn't notice the tiny fleck of blue food coloring Maya had slipped into the broth, a marker invisible to the eye but unmistakable under UV light. It was a trick Maya had learned after the last scam, a way to catch frauds red-handed. Karen poured her watery substitute into the bowl, swirling it with a spoon, then shoved it back toward Maya. "This is garbage," she bellowed. "You call this broth? I'm reporting you to the health department." The diner went quiet. Maya didn't blink. She picked up the bowl, sniffed it, and tilted it under a small UV penlight she kept in her apron. The liquid glowed faintly blue. Karen's face froze, her smirk slipping. "What's that?" she snapped, her voice cracking. Maya's smile turned sharp. "This," she said, "is proof you swapped my broth for whatever's in that thermos of yours." Karen's eyes darted to her purse, then back to Maya. She opened her mouth to protest, but Ethan stepped forward, holding up his phone. "Got it all on video," he said, his voice steady. The other diners murmured, some pulling out their own phones. Karen's scam was unraveling, and she knew it. But Karen wasn't one to back down. She doubled down, her face reddening as she slammed her hand on the counter. "This is slander," she shrieked. I'm a professional chef. You're trying to frame me. Her voice was a weapon now, meant to intimidate, to bully her way out. Maya didn't budge. She'd dealt with worse. Growing up in a rough neighborhood, she'd learned to stand her ground. She leaned in, her voice calm but cutting. A real chef knows broth doesn't glow blue under UV light. Want to explain what's in your thermos? Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The manager, a stocky woman named Rosa, stepped in, her arms crossed. We can call the cops, Rosa said. Or you can leave. Your choice. Karen's bravado cracked. She grabbed her purse, muttering about lawsuits, but the weight of every eye in the diner pinned her in place. She wasn't just caught, she was exposed. The other diners, now openly staring, whispered among themselves. Someone clapped. Karen's face burned, but she wasn't done. She shoved the bowl, sending it clattering to the floor, the blue-tinted liquid splashing across the tiles. You'll hear from my lawyer, she spat, storming toward the door. But the fight wasn't over. Maya, Ethan, and Rosa weren't about to let her walk away scot-free. The door swung shut behind Karen, but the tension in the rusty ladle didn't fade. Maya wiped the spilled broth from the floor, her jaw tight. Ethan replayed the video on his phone, making sure every second of Karen's scam was clear. Rosa, the manager, was already on the phone with the local business association, warning other restaurants about Karen's tactics. They'd seen her name pop up before. Karen Mitchell, a serial complainer known for hitting small businesses with fake complaints and threats of bad reviews. But this time, she'd picked the wrong target. Maya wasn't just a chef. She was a fighter, and the rusty ladle was her turf. Karen didn't go far. She lingered outside, pacing the sidewalk, her phone pressed to her ear as she ranted to someone, probably a friend or her so-called lawyer. Ethan watched through the window, his gut telling him she wasn't done. She's not leaving, he said, glancing at Maya. She's planning something. Maya nodded, her mind already racing. She'd built this place from nothing, pouring her savings and soul into every recipe. No way was she letting Karen tarnish it. She grabbed a fresh pot, filled it with water and set it to boil. If she comes back, Maya said, we'll serve her something special. Sure enough, Karen stormed back in 10 minutes later, her face a mask of righteous fury. You humiliated me, she bellowed, pointing at Maya. I'm suing for defamation, and I'm posting this online. She held up her phone, where a half-written review accused the rusty ladle of serving toxic sludge and framing customers. The diners, some of whom had stayed to see how this played out, gasped. A few pulled out their phones, ready to record round two. Karen thrived on the chaos, her voice rising as she listed her credentials, none of which anyone could verify. I've cooked for celebrities, she claimed. I know Gordon Ramsay personally. Maya didn't flinch. She stepped out from behind the counter, holding a new bowl filled with plain, lukewarm water, her special broth. You're a chef, right? Maya said, her voice dripping with mock respect. Taste this. Tell me what's wrong with it. Karen hesitated, sensing a trap, but her ego wouldn't let her back down. She snatched the bowl, took a loud slurp, and froze. The diners leaned in, waiting. Karen's face twisted, but she couldn't admit it was just water, not after claiming to be a culinary genius. She took another sip, her eyes darting nervously. It's fine, she muttered, her voice barely audible. The room erupted in laughter. Ethan, unable to hold back, clapped his hands. Fine? That's water, lady. Karen's face went purple, her hands shaking as she set the bowl down. She'd been outplayed and she knew it. But the twist hit harder. Maya had already sent Ethan's video to the local news, along with a sample of Karen's thermos broth for testing. The results came back during the confrontation. The thermos contained cheap, store-bought broth laced with preservatives, nothing like Maya's handmade recipe. Maya held up her phone, showing the lab report. This is what you tried to pass off as mine, she said. Want to explain that to the health department? Karen's confidence shattered. She stammered, her usual bluster gone. The diners were now openly jeering, one shouting, Get out, Karen. Rosa stepped forward, her voice firm. You've got two options. Leave now, or we press charges for fraud and vandalism. Karen's eyes widened. She hadn't expected them to fight back this hard. She'd underestimated Maya, who'd grown up scrapping for respect in a world that often dismissed her. Maya leaned in close, her voice low. You picked the wrong kitchen to mess with. Karen grabbed her purse, her hands trembling, and bolted for the door. This time she didn't look back. But the story wasn't over. The video of her scam went viral on social media, shared by diners and picked up by local bloggers. Karen's name became a cautionary tale, her face plastered across X posts warning restaurants about her tactics. The Rusty Ladle, meanwhile, saw a surge in customers, drawn by Maya's quick thinking and the diner's reputation for standing up to bullies. But Maya wasn't celebrating yet. She knew people like Karen didn't change, they just moved on to the next target. The fallout was swift. By morning, Karen's scam was the talk of Portland's food scene. The Rusty Ladle's social media pages buzzed with support, customers praising Maya's grit and Ethan's quick thinking. The video of Karen sipping plain water, her face crumpling as she realized she'd been caught, racked up thousands of views. Local news ran a segment, interviewing Maya about how she'd outsmarted the scammer. But Karen wasn't done. She posted a rambling defense online, claiming she was the victim, accusing the Rusty Ladle of poisoning her with fake broth. Nobody bought it. The lab report, now public, showed her thermos broth was little more than flavored water with a side of sodium. Karen's world began to crumble. Her social media accounts, once filled with boasts about her culinary expertise, were flooded with comments calling her out. Restaurants she'd scammed before came forward, sharing their own stories. A deli owner recalled how Karen had swapped out their pastrami for supermarket meat, demanding a refund. A cafe owner said she'd threatened to sue over a stale croissant she'd brought from home. The pattern was clear. Karen had been running her con for years, banking on small businesses being too busy or scared to fight back. But the Rusty Ladle had changed the game. Maya, Ethan, and Rosa met with a lawyer the next day. The spilled broth and Karen's threats gave them grounds to file a civil suit for fraud and property damage. The police got involved too, thanks to the video evidence and the thermos, which Karen had left behind in her haste. It wasn't just about the Rusty Ladle Anna Maria, it was about justice for every small business Karen had targeted. Maya felt a fire in her chest, not just for herself but for every chef, waiter, and owner who'd been bullied by someone like Karen. She'd fought her whole life to prove her worth, and this was no different. Karen's final collapse came quietly. A week later, she was served with legal papers at her apartment, a dingy place cluttered with takeout containers and unopened cookbooks. Faced with mounting evidence and a growing list of accusers, she settled out of court, paying damages to the Rusty Ladle and 3 other businesses. Her online presence vanished, her accounts deleted as the backlash grew too heavy. She ate her last meal in public at a fast food joint, head down, silent, a far cry from the loudmouth who'd stormed into Maya's diner. For Maya, the victory was bittersweet. She'd protected her restaurant, but the fight had taken a toll. Late at night, after the last customer left, she'd sit at the counter, staring at her pots, wondering if she'd chosen the right battle. But then Ethan would crack a joke, or Rosa would bring her a coffee, and the weight would lift. The Rusty Ladle wasn't just a diner, it was a community, built on trust and hard work. Maya realized that standing up to Karen wasn't just about saving her business. It was about showing others they could fight back too. The Rusty Ladle thrived, its broth more famous than ever. Customers came from across the city, some just to shake Maya's hand. She started a fund with the settlement money, helping other small restaurants install cameras to catch scammers. Ethan got a raise, his quick thinking earning him a permanent spot as Maya's right-hand man. Rosa began teaching new managers how to spot frauds like Karen. And in the quiet moments, Maya would smile, knowing she'd turned a bully's lie into a lesson. No one messes with a chef who knows her broth. The world was full of Karens, but it was also full of people like Maya, resilient, clever, and ready to fight for what's right.